Welcome to another edition of FlexRental Solutions how-to videos. Today we're going to be continuing our pricing model functionality and extending our pricing tiers to do after hours calculations. So previously we've looked at going over regular time and overtime with just a standard two-tier calculation. So the third functionality that we want to work on today is what happens if we charge people if we've got to show up before a certain time and after a certain time, that we charge differently based on if it's during normal working hours. And so we call these after-hour pricing tiers. So we're going to revisit our pricing tier calculations, and we're going to go to System Settings and Pricing Models. And we have a pricing model called Standard Labor in here. So in here, we have created multiple time rates for normal, overtime, after hours. Before, with normal time, we left the start effective time blank and the end effective time blank. And what we meant by that is it doesn't matter whether it's 12 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the morning, this calculation would apply not based on what time of day it is. Just any time up to 8 hours, good to go. We have added a start effective time of 7 a.m. and end effective time at 7 p.m. Meaning starting at 7 a.m. through 7 p.m., anything up to 8 hours will apply 1 times our hourly rate. We said we want to charge a minimum of 4 hours and up to 8 hours. If we look at our overtime, we put that same functionality in here saying, hey, anytime overtime between 7 and 8 starts after 8 hours, goes through 12 hours, 1.5 times our hourly rate, and we'll subtract 8 hours, max up to 12. So if it was 10 hours during these time periods, it would subtract 8 and give us 2 hours. So this third pricing tier that we added has a different start and end effective time. It is saying anytime after 7 p.m. but before 8 a.m., we're going to start matching that criteria and charge differently for it. It's going to start out at 1.5 a day rate, and you can again add a minimum time quantity, max time quantity, etc. So the way that applies is we have this call from 4:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. And if we change this to that pricing model that uses that, that's a 5-hour call, and it breaks it up at 7 a.m. So after 7 a.m., it proceeds to go into normal time. So you've got 2.5 hours at 67.5, which is 1.5 times our normal hourly rate, and then 2.5 hours at our normal rate, 1 times $45 an hour. So if we were to move this up to 7 a.m., it will recalculate that and say, oh, this is a 2-hour call, not within that after hours criteria, but it doesn't meet our 4-hour minimum requirement, so we're going to charge 4 hours at normal rate. If we change this and say we're going to start at, say, 4 p.m. and we're going to go to 9 p.m. and recalculate that. That gives us 3 hours at regular time and 2 hours of after hours. So all these functionalities take place by creating very specific rules. And again, it's all based on how do we match whether the call time has elements in there that reflect this specific criteria. And if it matches it, how much of it matches? And if so, how do we calculate it? So that is normal time, overtime, after hours. We also created another one that we could say, and we could take off these start and effective times and say, well, anything over 12 hours will automatically go into double time. So if we take this down to (7 a.m. to 9 p.m.), it's charging the higher rate of the double time for those 2 extra hours instead of going into the after hours call, which was only time and a half. Now, the final thing that we wanted to touch on today was that for now, we've been marking these as normal days of the week, Monday through Friday. All these calculate appropriately. We created 2 more pricing tiers that apply towards weekends, Saturday and Sunday. And it has a different matching criteria. No start and end time for when these are applicable, because we're going to charge this at 1.5 times our hourly rate. So anything on the weekend, we're going to start off as 1.5. If we go over 8 hours on the weekend, then it goes directly into double time. So if we were to change this to a Saturday job, and we'll just say from 9 a.m. to say 8 p.m., we've got 8 hours of weekend straight time, which is 1.5 times our normal rate, and then 3 hours of weekend overtime, which we calculate as double time. And so you could call these whatever you want. If we go back to here, again, these weekend straight, weekend overtime, these pricing tiers that they display reflect whatever those are. So that's the functionality, how we can continue to add different pricing rules on how we calculate normal, overtime, after hours, double time, even weekend, etc. So you may have a rule or a pricing model that may have 8 or 9 pricing rule criterias and different pricing calculations based on those. And again, you may have different rules that apply to different calls based on who is going to be filling these calls. As an example, if this was your own internal employee and you don't charge weekend rates for your own internal employees, you may want to change your rate to use something that doesn't charge weekend and overtime. If in that venue you're forced to use a local union person and they have different rules, and they have weekend and straight rules. You could have the exact same call time, change the rate or the pricing model for each one appropriately, and one would charge weekend rate and the other would not. So the whole functionality is to be able to create different rules and apply those rules to the specific services that you're charging for and have them calculate how they need to. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact support at flexrentalsolutions.com. Make sure to give as much information as you can regarding how you're trying to structure these, and they will be able to guide you through on configuring these different pricing tiers. If you have any other questions, again, please contact support at flexrentalsolutions.com.